of a Brook charter school in Boston. You all, I have had the great honor and pleasure of working with Danielle and her school for the past year and a half actually now. And I don't know many school leaders that are as deeply reflective and unapologetically all about growing themselves and the hunger that she has to grow and learn, more so because she understands that when she grows, her school community grows, her leaders grow, her teachers grow, her students grow, and that's exactly what has happened. That's exactly what her day has shown over the course of the last year. So tell us, Danielle, tell us a little about your journey throughout this pandemic, you know, like maybe some of the wins and whatever have been some of the hardest things for you as a principal and then for your school.
Yes, absolutely. And that's such a long story. So I'm going to try to give the shortest version possible. Yeah. But, you know, we all know that this didn't just start this year over this summer. It started last year around April, and there was a lot that we learned and that we took from then. But yeah, the journey started over the summer with really taking a lot of time to think about what was the best way to open school. And like, if I had to start with a challenge, I think that was probably one of the most challenging things, is just deciding what was going to be the best for students, what was going to be the best way to be able to create an environment where they could learn that was going to be safe. And so we went back and forth a lot with whether we're all remote or whether we're doing a hybrid and what hybrid would look like. I remember working with Noemi and the principals group that we had. We do these she groups, we call them. And there's about 6 of us, principals of all different like ages and number of years, like being a school leader. And I remember us like sharing that bond of like, man, if we make this decision, there's going to be 50% of the folks who are going to like be so angry and so upset. And there's going to be another 50% who are going to be, you know, really happy with the decision. So that is, you know, definitely a heavy weight as a school leader, is trying to figure out what's the best for the students and knowing that your decision is not going to make everyone happy. So I would say that was the first challenge. And then also just giving up a lot of my summer to give thought to that, because you can't make a decision like that overnight. It took a lot of going back and forth and thinking about the details and logistics. So that's kind of where the journey started, was just, you know, thinking about what happened in the spring, what were some of the wins, what were some of the fails, then thinking about what school would look like. And then when we were able to finally come to a decision that most of us would be remote and that only some students would be in person, it was like, okay, now how do I start training my teachers? And then I would say,
like the big thing.
Yes, but that was a challenge in itself, because it's like, how are you going to teach somebody something, but I'm basically learning myself along the way. But again, that principal group was great because I felt like I had a village to bounce ideas off of. Like, hey, what are y'all doing in Georgia? Y'all start in like 3 weeks before us. So, you know, tell me what's going on. Or you are a principal of a school that's high school, so they're closer to the 8th graders. So what are you guys doing? So anyway, those were some of the challenges. And then of course the bumps and hiccups along the way with technology, right? Like, what do you do when you have 20 kids on the class and then Zoom just crashes? Like, how do you navigate?
So it's so funny. They just want to say, Principal Fraser said, COVID has been eye-opening. Idea Ed Consulting and her niche and her team. And Carmen said, miss my she cohort.
Yes,
I miss you guys too.
Yes, absolutely.
But yeah, so you were saying that. What else were you saying?
So those were some of the challenges. And so, you know, I want to kind of like dip into some of the wins. So despite those challenges of trying to figure out like what's the right decision and the logistics that go behind that, we're like, okay, we know that most of us are going to be in person. So what can we do to like best support students? And so, you know, some of the wins for me is just like, what is going on in the classrooms? Like, I was sharing with my staff today, we had a professional development session, and I was just like, you guys are so amazing. Like, for math, for example, like we're learning Pythagorean theorem and they're trying to use it for like 3D shapes. And y'all know teaching that and trying to figure out all them triangles within a 3-dimensional shape in person is hard, but they were doing that on the computer and figuring out how to use technology to, you know, demonstrate something that's very visual. And usually you'd be able to go around and walk around and show kids, but like they were doing that like in the classroom. Something else, just building electromagnets. Like the science teacher spent hours like putting together materials, and we were able to send those home with the kids, and they're on Zoom like putting together the batteries and wrapping the wires around.
Wow.
And so, just seeing things like that is amazing. And my social studies teacher, they took a virtual trip to Berlin. And I was just like, what y'all doing in Berlin? But they're studying how Hitler was able to convince so many people to follow him. And so they were like, wow, like, let's take them on the virtual field trip, see where this like rally happened, where he got people like really interested. And then like, let's look at this picture of Jesse Owens and like talk about how he like defied all those stereotypes that the Aryan race was superior. So like my kids are engaging in those type of conversations and doing those activities. And even in advisory, so that's like a time where they do like team building. I think I posted this on my Instagram a few weeks back, but one of the activities the teachers did on Padlet, it was so amazing. Usually you just go around the class and be like, talk about what's important to your culture, or bring in an artifact. And, they might bring in a flag or some food, but she figured out how to do that online. And so the Padlet had kids like writing about, what's important to them and finding pictures. And so they couldn't bring their flag in person, but they posted it on the Padlet. And like that was just like awesome. I'm just so amazed at like the resiliency. Like they're starting from a place of like, what would we do in person? Because, they're great teachers in person. And like, how do I transform that online? Yeah. And it's just been so amazing to watch.
So I love that you're mentioning this, Danielle. Let's stay here for a moment and let's dig a little deeper, because I think it's super important for everyone watching this. A lot of the people who are watching us are educators, particularly school leaders and district leaders. And there are some very key things that I know that you have done to set the platform and to create a school environment where your teachers have the space to go and be creative, right? This has a lot to do with some key decisions that you have made as a leader of this school to empower your teachers to the point where they feel like, they're trying new things, they're collaborating with one another. Talk to us about some maybe specific things that you as a leader have done to create that environment, and maybe like some pieces of advice for other school leaders who are currently struggling with, man, like my teachers are burned out. They keep saying they don't have enough planning time. They're still struggling. The engagement is low. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I would say the first thing that I did, and it's not something I just started doing during COVID, but it's just kind of how I choose to lead, like, period. It's just building really strong relationships with teachers. It's super important to me to know the people that I work with and to make sure that they're being recognized like as human beings. And that sounds so simple. Right. It sounds so simple, but it's not something that everyone does. And I think that that's a strength of mine, is to build relationships with people, to really get to know them, to think about like what their leadership skills are, to think about what things they have in them, what potential, and just think about how to bring that out. And if you get to know people as people first, you start to build trust and build bonds, then it feels less like a, admin, you're my boss type of thing, and more like we're in this together. So I think that's the first thing, is just like being super intentional. So that's like doing icebreakers like every single day, like during new teacher orientation in August, professional development. That's listening when they're talking to me and they're like, yeah, my dog was sick and I had to go to the vet, and me like following up, like, how did that go? How is your daughter doing? How is your husband doing?
People first.
Yes, listening. Or if they say, hey, I need a day off, and they say they weren't feeling well, how are you feeling? Is everything okay? So I would say that's the first thing, is just building relationships. The second thing, which I think is connected to that, is just building a space of trust. I make sure at the beginning of the year, I tell them I am not the smartest person in the room. I don't have all the answers. Like, this is a team like effort. You guys have all great things. You all have great things that you can bring and share with the team. And so while I sometimes as the school leader have to make decisions and be like, this is what we're doing, I create a space where I listen and take feedback. And I just remember one teacher who was coming from a different school. She was, we're trying to hire another teacher. And she was like, what's the deal? Should I go over there? And she was just like, I've like been in places where I've had leaders and I've made suggestions. And when I've made it, they made it seem like I was being like ungrateful. They didn't even really like take it serious. And they took it as like a challenge. Whereas they felt like with me, they could come to me with suggestions and say, hey, I had this idea. So something specifically that we changed, like this year, based on teacher feedback, was that like our Wednesday schedules felt too packed. Like we had whole staff PD, then we had house meetings, and then we had like community meeting with the kids, and it was just all these classes back to back.
Put in the comments, just press that little heart if you are a teacher or a school leader and you feel like some of your days are super packed. Just go ahead and press that heart or let us know, because I have heard common things. But go ahead, Danielle.
Yes. I think, you know, and the thing that I feel like I fostered is like, okay, tell me what the issue is, but also if you have suggestions or like ideas about how we can, you know, resolve it, like come with those too. So if it's just like, okay, we're stressed, like that is going to come with it with like COVID and this being something new. But like if it's a schedule type of thing, like that is something that like I can change easily and that we can, you know, brainstorm and think about the impact. So yeah, I think those are the two most important things, just the relationships and then creating a space where teachers feel like their voices like matter and are heard and that their feedback is being taken seriously. So I think those are the two things. And then, well, actually I have one more. Yeah. So I think the other thing is like modeling. So you have a lot of leaders who will lead and they just be like, do this, do this, do this, do this, right? And it's just like, you kind of, I never wanted to get to the place where I was so far removed from the classroom that I forgot what it was like to be a teacher and just, you know, ask my teachers to do all these things that I couldn't even do myself. So I try to model. So for example, when I'm doing professional development, I'm asking my teachers to take attendance like while the kids are doing a do now. So I'm modeling that. I'm trying to take attendance while I'm having the teachers do a do now. If I want the lessons to be engaging and I want you to use a Nearpod, Miss Blair had to figure out how to use a Nearpod. Like, and I didn't know who or what Nearpod was. And like, that took me some time. I had to go to a training and I had to learn it myself and then do it for the teachers so that they could see that. So I think that's the other thing too. It's just like showing them that I'm in this with them. We had these little sketch pads that we were buying so that you could like annotate on the screen. Honey, like I had to open up the Chromebooks to see how it worked on the Chromebook so we could teach the kids. That took me like 2 whole hours.
I love though that you are also doing the work with teachers. You all, let me just take another moment to celebrate Principal Blair, because one thing that I love about your leadership practice, Danielle, is that your priority is, in addition to school safety, is always like a non-negotiable is getting into teachers' classrooms, growing your teachers. Danielle, as the school leader, as the primary instructional leader of her school, she makes it a priority to observe classrooms, to debrief with her teachers. And let me just talk about the results. Like even last year and last fall, I remember, I forgot what content it was for your school. You know, I think the benchmark assessment, network assessment came back and the kids were like maybe 20 points below the state average. And within months, those scores, I mean, literally just within a few months, those scores increased, I think it was like 30 points above the state average. And a lot of that, it doesn't happen just magically. It doesn't happen because you tell your teachers that they should do better. It happens because you are right there with them. You are right there modeling with them. You are analyzing the data with them. And even right now in this season, you have given some specific surveys, right? And you're getting feedback from your data. Can you talk a little bit about what's happening right now in your school community and what you are prioritizing with your teachers?
Yeah, so right now we are focusing on engagement. I think engagement is tricky when kids are in person. You know, 8th graders, all they want to do is play their video games and hang out with their friends. So you have to think about how you're going to create lessons that are engaging. And then you add the component of being on Zoom, and that adds a whole nother layer. So we're focusing on engagement, and I've been really excited about our PD sessions, which basically teachers have been sharing what they've been doing for engagement strategies and talking about what works in their classroom and then going back and trying it out. So that's been amazing to see. And again, it took the focus off of me. Like Danielle has all the answers and it put it on the teachers. And it was like, I tried this great thing in my classroom and it was awesome. Here's what I did for breakout rooms. Cause y'all know breakout rooms have been rough. Okay. The second and third graders.
We have observed in different schools, different states,
Yes.
And the breakout rooms is an interesting
It
one
is.
to observe a classroom and kids in a breakout room for sure.
The little kids, you know, when I watched them on, my nephew, he's in 5th grade. So I think like maybe 5th grade and below, you can't get the kids to stop talking, right? They're talking. It's not their turn. They're sharing their jellyfish, bringing their animals. The 8th grade and above, once you get to high school, they ain't saying nothing.
Like what? What
you ask them, you ask them a question, they texting in the chat. I'm just like,
get out
the talk? Right. Can y'all get out the chat? Can y'all talk? This is not like y'all cell phones, but you know, you got to be open to, you know, thinking differently about what engagement looks like, right? We want them to be
I have a total sidebar, Danielle.
Go for it, girl.
Sidebar. We'll come back.
Yes,
Do
ma'am.
you find that, particularly I notice with high school kids, what's up with kids like having lights in their bedrooms and like decking out their rooms? Do you find that with your kids or no?
Yes, girl. You know, they're trying to make sure their background looks nice, you know? They did that with their lockers in school.
This is a real thing, you guys. This is a real thing. These companies that sell like lights and decor and whatever and club lights, kids got like strobe lights. They be setting the whole mood for
it's not a joke.
Yes, the LED lights.
Yeah, but they did that in school. Like I remember looking in this one girl's locker. She had a whole mirror, like, you know, her name was like in sticker, like, you know, they deck it all out. She had like a little poof ball. Like I don't even know.
Right. Well, go ahead, students. If there are any students in here, if they watch this later, keep decking out your room. Just make sure you show up and fully engage with all the learning that's happening.
Yes, and I'm happy to see their faces because some students, they are not trying to turn their cameras on. So we've done a lot of work around getting students comfortable with that and just being thoughtful about, you know, the different, you know, situations that they're coming from. And so I know some students are like, you know, I'm not trying to have my background all up in everybody's business. And so we talk about, you know, finding a place in the house where the wall is the background. So, you know, if you don't like what's going on, that, you know, people won't have to see that. So, you know, we've been doing a lot of work and a lot of talking about that. And then even I think the next coolest thing, Noemi, I know we're still kind of sidetracked, but, you know, when you take off your camera and it has a picture in the background. So like, decking out those pictures and, you know, whether it's like, you know, a picture of your mom. I had one girl had a background of her grandmother who recently passed away. And so, you know, she wanted to rep that and celebrate her grandma during Hispanic Heritage Month. So people had their flags. And so that was their background. So kids have been experimenting with those backgrounds too. So that's been pretty cool.
That's cool. I mean, I think as long as you set the parameters, right? I'm sure you all have thought through that. And, you know, I think it's certainly another way for kids to bring a little bit of their individual artistic side to the table. It's quite interesting. What Carmen said, we don't allow pictures on backgrounds anymore. Carmen's at a high school.
I can see why.
You know, kids get real creative with all that. So
yeah, we had one Playboy bunny that I shut down, but
exactly.
I was like, what is that?
I'm sure, you know, kids, they like to keep it real interesting, keep us all on our toes. So Danielle, we have been working together for working with your school for the last year and a half. And I'd like for you to just talk about like what that experience is like, particularly because there are principals who come to this page who are going to be watching this video, district leaders, aspiring leaders, and are kind of questioning like, well, you know, I don't know if I want to speak up and say that I need leadership development. I don't want people to think I don't know what I'm doing, you know, and sometimes it's that like imposter syndrome. So like, can you talk a little bit about that, but then also just like, what has this work been like for you?
Absolutely. So I too have suffered from imposter syndrome.
We all do. Yeah.
I did not go through traditional schooling to become a school leader. So I knew I was going to need support. I did not go to a prep program. And so I was like, I know I'm going to need help. There was a time, I think maybe in like my 3rd year, maybe of being a principal, where I realized that I needed more support. And I started looking for opportunities for professional development outside of my school. We have tons of professional development for
I'm losing you a little bit. Go ahead. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Am I back? Okay, so I went to a School Leaders of Color conference, and that's when I met Noemi, talked to her about my experience being a school leader, and she shared with me her experience being a school leader and talked about how she's doing consulting now. So I was like, you know what, I need you in my life. And it was just great talking with her just because she was a former school leader and together. Um,
Yeah, I'm also seeing the little, is it cutting off for you? You good? Let me see.
are we back?
Okay, are you there?
Yeah, I think so. I got off my Wi-Fi, so hopefully that'll be better.
Okay, yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, great. So yeah, so just talking with Noemi and hearing about her experience being a school leader, it just like, really inspired me. I was like, I need her in my life. I need her to teach me the ropes. She's been in my shoes before, and she's going to give me the game. So it's been amazing working with you, Noemi. We started off talking about how to set a vision for my school and how to set priorities. I have visions, communicating what my vision is and making sure like I have a way of tracking how I'm meeting those goals was something that I needed to work on. So I remember distinctly spending some time being like, Noemi, I'm so passionate. Like, here are all my ideas. And she's like, okay, let's slow down a little bit. Like, let's put pen to paper and talk about what this vision is. What are the strategic steps that we're going to take to get there? And what it's going to look like to communicate this with your team and then also get them bought in. And so I feel like I had a lot of buy-in from my teachers just based on my relationships with them. But you can have relationships all you want. If the kids are not meeting the goals and doing what they're supposed to do, they're only going to follow you for so long. And so I remember, crying actually, because I was looking at some of my data from my first year and I was just like, what is happening? Like, this is not what it was supposed to be. And she looked at it and was able to find strengths even within that data that I thought was just like off on. She was like, look at all this. And like, here are the things that we need to do to get it on point. So I think
So wait, what happened after we looked at the data, worked together? What happened with your data, with your school data?
Well, naturally, it went up in every single area.
Hey!
It was amazing. Yeah. So we do leadership surveys that we give the staff each year. And like, when I say like the data, my first year was abysmal. Like, I wanted to be like, Lord, like, are you sure that this is what you called me to do? Because this data is not, speaking to that. But yeah, I mean, like, it jumped in a lot of ways too. Like, it's on like a 5-point scale. So things went from like 2 to like 4.5. And so that's like big growth. So specifically teachers' feedback on growing as individuals and growing professionally, teachers' feedback on how they felt like my feedback to them was impacting their data, academic data, their culture data in their classroom. Yeah, all of those things went up and were strengthened. And even how much people felt like they were getting out of whole staff PD, like feeling like that was like a useful time in a time
quality
where
professional development for your teachers.
Yeah. So yeah, I would say that those are a lot of the things that we've worked on and have grown in. And one other big thing is just developing like capacity in my leaders. I don't know why, but I know a lot of Black women go through this with this like whole superwoman complex and just think I'm supposed to do everything.
Yeah.
And I already knew I had amazing teachers on my team and amazing like leaders, but I needed to do more work to like bring that out of them and to, really share my vision in a way that Noemi always said, if I was to leave or, I had to be out, could the school still run itself? And so I still think about that to this day. Like, what am I doing to build capacity in my teachers and in my leaders so that if I'm not there for some reason, the school still runs like a well-oiled machine? So I think those are some of the biggest areas where like I've grown in and like your training has helped Noemi.
That's so great. Danielle, I want to just highlight here, and Carmen, by the way, Carmen said, yes, she knows the feeling. She's applauding you, giving you some shine. And then, by the way, she mentioned earlier, she was like, I see you representing Newark Tech. She gave me this water bottle from her school.
Oh, nice.
So she's like, I see you repping the school. Yeah, shout out her school. But I wanted to just take a moment here to say, Danielle, the exponential growth that you have made with your school, like literally in our coaching session earlier today, one of the things you said was, I love that I am able to think ahead and no longer be in the like putting out fire mode, right? Like you're literally strategizing about, okay, like now I'm planning for our next trimester for professional development. But truly, it is so inspiring to see how you have restructured your leadership team, how you are like growing your leaders, and they feel like this is their school. There's a huge increase in shared ownership. The quality of teacher professional development that's happening is like, it's beautiful. And like, if you are not following Principal Blair, you need to go follow her right now. I know she's been posting and putting out some really great content and some things that they are doing in their school community. I think sometimes we, as when we're in that position of principalship, we don't always give ourselves, we're so hard on ourselves, right? And we don't give ourselves all of the love and we sometimes forget like actually how freaking great we are. And Danielle, like people need to be following you. You are doing amazing things for Brook Schools and your school community. So continue to lead and walk in your power. Go follow Danielle Blair. Also, Danielle, do you want to leave us with anything before we wrap up here?
Not anything new. Just want to like reiterate, like the relationships are like key. Start there, and then everything else flows from it. The relationships, and just remembering that kids can learn. All kids can learn, and thinking about what that looks like. Even, when we're in a pandemic, we've faced a lot of challenges before. This is a new challenge, but we're not, this is not new that we're facing a challenge. We've always worked with groups of students who have faced challenges. And that's kind of the place that I kind of pulled from. I was just like, hey guys, because, people were feeling super defeated at the beginning of the year. And there were some times where I feel like I had to pour into other people and then go pick myself up at the end of the day too. But like, we've overcome before, right? There are so many challenges that our students face and we've overcome before. And so we're resilient. This is nothing new. We've done it before. We can do it again. And so I think just continuing to think about that and continuing to find spaces where people can pour back into you. And so for me, that was the principal group, the sisterhood. It was cool to be with a group of leaders. Yeah, but like leaders of color, women leaders of color. And like we had lots of shared experiences. So it was great to be able to pour into each other and bounce ideas. They're the ones who told me I needed to make a principal page. I was like, what? A principal page? Because the kids be trying to follow you. So it was like, you can give them a page and then they can follow you on there and you can use it as a platform. I was like, okay, cool. So, created that page a few months back. And so definitely blessed to be in the cohort. Definitely blessed to be working with you. And I'm just so excited about all the growth that I'm making because like you said, it's going to impact my teachers and ultimately my kids. So thank you so much for joining us tonight, guys, and for listening. Hope to connect with folks soon.
Y'all give her some love. Go ahead and tap that heart right there. And for anyone who is interested, everyone loves Nick said, thank you for this. Carmen said, great job or good job. Everyone loves Nick. You're so welcome. For anyone who's interested, the link is right here. If you are looking to be a part of it's called the Solidarity, Healing, and Empowerment Cohort. It is an affinity-based leadership development program for women of color in educational leadership. So principals, vice principals, we even have had some aspiring leaders in there or teacher leaders. So you can click on the link right there, schedule your call. We also have another cohort that is coming up and it's a lot of the same leadership competencies, but it is open to all educational leaders. It is not affinity based. So link is right there. Make sure you go book your call. Danielle, you are the bomb. go follow Principal. It's Principal Blair, right?
Yep, that's it. No E.
All right, y'all. There you go. All right, everyone.
All right.
Have a wonderful night. Thanks for joining.
Good night.